Ladies and gentlemen, we're back again. Welcome back. I shouldn't say we're back. Maybe welcome back. Welcome back to another Ask That. My name is Clark Sell. This is a double day. Double day because we already recorded one, and now we're recording two. It's Friday afternoon, and we just got too much to share. Today this afternoon, I have Al with me. Al, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Clark?
I'm doing well. You're looking kind of dapper down there in the south.
Yeah, the Preds are winning. It's good to go.
All right. So before we start wrapping, and what everybody might not realize is we've been chatting now for probably 20 minutes and probably should have hit record a while ago. But all said and done, what do we let the people know who you are?
Sure. My name's Al Zaudtke. I know Clark didn't say my last name because he can't.
That's right, I didn't. Way too many vowels.
I'm an architect at Keller Associates. They're a company in northeastern Wisconsin. I used to live up there in the frigid cold, and about 3 years ago, my wife and I moved to Knoxville, Tennessee. And they let me go remote, and so here I am, where I didn't have 30 inches of snow last week. So an architect on the team, what's that mean? It means a lot of different things. We've got a lot of products. Lately, I've been focusing on some Azure IoT stuff so that we've got an IoT solution that exists. It's not scalable. We're building it natively in Azure to scale it. So that's been my predominant focus over the last year or so.
Can you talk at all about what your solution is? I don't know if that's public knowledge or not. It might be interesting for people to have a little bit of context about the IoT thing that you guys are.
Sure. I mean, without diving into, all the patents. Yeah, because we talk about it at our table at that conference every year. So I can give that spiel. So what we have is over-the-road truck drivers have to fill out a logbook for I went on duty, so I'm working, but I'm not driving. Now I'm driving. Now I'm off duty, and you're only allowed so many hours in a day and so many hours in a week with breaks and things like that. My company sells those paper books. You could probably find them in any truck stop, gas station along any major interstate. Recently, the government has decided that those now need to be electronic. So we have a black box with proprietary software on it that plugs into the ODB port on the vehicle.
Yep.
So it'll read the engine data off of there, and it crunches a bunch of stuff there, sends it via Bluetooth to a handheld device running natively on Android and iOS, and then we send that up to the website through an API call. Some of that data can still go through our existing website. Some of that data, the data we're reading all the time from the engine, that's the non-scalable portion of our site. So what we're doing now is we're taking that, building the piece to send it up through IoT hubs.
Gotcha. Yeah, as somebody who's a gearhead, I have not one of your devices, but I have a residential device that I use on my vehicles that at least have an ODB sensor on them. And the amount of data you can get off those things is crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, my truck's a 2003. It only gets more and more as you go up. In fact, one of my cousins is a mechanic, and he's got like the sweet old Snap-on, computer deal that he can plug into and it's interesting to watch him make the truck dance. He can, windows are rolling down, they're rolling back up, they're, it's resetting things. So it's the architecture of a car. Car's computer is not only a dumpster fire of a CAN bus, but it's an interesting way that the thing works.
I couldn't even begin to understand it.
It's just event messages. That's it.
Yeah. We've got a guy that does all that for us, and so.
Yeah. So you and I, we were talking earlier, and we started talking about some architecture stuff and talking about functional programming and the decision criteria of I don't want to say buy versus build, but should you use a tool or should you use your noggin? Where do you think, in the age of tools, in the age of libraries, what what do you feel like is the decision criteria to use something?
I don't know.
Or to build something.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think some of it depends on if you're talking about libraries and packages to help you build something as opposed to buying off the shelf and consuming. That's a different conversation that's above my pay grade usually. I'm always going to want to build it, but as far as writing my own versus using a library, I'm kind of leaning towards using a library if I can, but there's certain places where it just doesn't make sense to me. You know, I'm going to admit it. I'm not a big ORM guy. Something like Dapper, that's cool. Something Entity Framework, I don't know.
But is that just like, all right, so easy to like throw other things underneath the wagon, but like taking that example, Dapper versus EF, and I happen to have used Dapper quite a bit, and EF. I don't choose to use either anymore, but like, is it just you being passionate about you don't like EF, or like where's like, hey, this breaks down for me?
I think where it breaks down for me is depending on the library, how much complexity it brings along with it, and then how much you have to then abstract it to make it work within your system. So something like an Entity Framework, or pick another library, you know, I hate to pick on that one. It was just a recent conversation I had.
Sure.
But then you start getting into the repository patterns and how do I fake this and mock that, and you start building abstractions on top of abstractions, and now you're not even really using all of the features that are available to you.
Right. Now you're not solving the problem.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I liken those like I call them leaky abstractions. Like the architecture leaks out, and then you're driven into doing things that maybe don't meet the business need correctly.
Yeah,
it works for that tool, but it doesn't really work for your need.
Right. I was looking at some things. We're looking to rebuild some of our stuff behind an API, one of our older projects, and I'm just banging my head against the wall trying to figure out how to get these resource models or view models or whatever you want to call them to match the business need. But then I still got to write all these Entity Framework things, and it just seems like a lot more work than it's worth sometimes to do various things. You know,
a bit of ceremony, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not a fan of a lot of demos online. I find that they're overly simplified.
Oh, sure. Well, of course.
Which
you got 3 minutes to capture the hearts and minds, right? So how are you going to capture
also do that next step up too when you get beyond table, object, screen.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's where I think a lot of that stuff starts to fall apart.
Yeah. Now, the last year you've had a bit of a foray into functional programming.
Yeah.
What led you down that path?
Well, it should be a surprise to no one. I'm rather outgoing, so I go to the various meetups around here, and I met these guys, and they're doing functional programming. And I started talking to them, and that's kind of cool. So I started going to some of their meetups. We've got a Slack channel out here for the area devs, and meet up with them. And we just had Code Stock, which is our conference here. And I'm not as headlong into it as they are. I'm going to program in Haskell. I'm going to write F#. I'm going to turn C# into F#. And I'm like, nah, I'm not that far. But I do like some of the concepts where maybe I can rework my logic from the monolithic service class that every .NET project in the world has. That's a transaction script, and turn it into black box components. Take data in, give data out. That's all they do. I can test that. That's the money-making part of the business. That's what's important. The stuff about writing to databases and returning responses, and it's all important, but everybody does that. That's not what makes money. So I'm trying to reorganize the way we think about writing code so that the pipeline stuff, the cruft stuff, that's the same way we always done it. But then let's take this piece out, put it over here, and it only takes data or functions and returns data or functions.
Yeah, I think you hit on a really important piece, and it kind of goes to what we were chatting a little bit earlier too. I mean, it's the make money part. Like, we are here to solve problems. We are here to enable people to be more efficient, you know, lay in more pipes and write more code. Like, that's act of what we do, but it's certainly, like, if it doesn't make any money or it doesn't ship, it ain't no damn good. And that's just the reality of it. And you can have a pile of junk, but if it's making money, pretty good pile of junk.
But like the back to the IoT solution, there's a piece of that is our proprietary money making. We take all that data in, and then we turn around and say, here's a violation, here's a violation, here's a violation, or you're good. That's where we make our money. So that's the piece that's important to separate out, and that thing's not tied to that database table or that web service call or that anything else. Let's rethink how we do this instead of, you know, procedural, where I'm going to say, first go get this data, then check this value, then go get more data. Let's take that out of the engine that actually says, all right, if you give me all this data, I'm going to give you an answer.
Yeah. So, you know, I think function, and I outside of JavaScript, I'd probably say I'm pretty noob in the old functional world. What did your journey in getting started look like? Because it's
asking a lot
different.
Of questions.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it's different. Like, I mean, you got to respect it for what it is.
Right. It's asking a lot of questions, and much to the dismay of the people that I'm asking these questions of. Like I said, I'm not taking that final step to jumping into the language or trying to rewrite C#. I'm also not as worried about the terminology. I don't care about monads and all those things that they love to talk about. That I'm like, I don't care. That's not the part I want to understand yet. I want to understand what's a higher order function. What's a function that takes a function or returns a function? Okay, I can get that. How do I use it? And then build that. So they've got GitHub repositories. I've gone out, I've looked at those. I've found things on Pluralsight. I've found, you know, people on Twitter. You go read their blogs then. Download some code, play with it.
Do you feel like your entry into functional programming has been a difficult one?
I don't think so. I know that there is that feeling online that I can see where the functional people may or may not be considered snobs now, and that whole dichotomy thing. Yeah. The people that I kind of got started with and everything else were in the same boat I was. They're just further along the path than I am. Yep. So they're much more understanding of what I'm trying to get into.
Sure. It's probably a bit true for anything in life, though. It's a bit of I don't know, just realizing that everybody's on a path, and you know, you may or may not be somewhere close or far from that.
But I've got a few people at work looking into it. They're interested. But like I said, they're even where I was earlier. It's like, what do you mean a function that takes a function? All right, we can start there.
Yeah.
Well, why would I want to do that? Because now you don't need whatever interface.
Yeah. Yeah. That moment where you realize you can pass functions around is a glorious moment. Like, wow. Yeah, just fling a function.
That makes testing it easier too.
Right. Yeah. What languages have you been messing around with? There's certainly a stack of them.
Yeah, predominantly F# or just how I can write C# in a, I don't want to say functional way, but a more functional way or a different way. So I start, you know, using lambdas and things like that and just thinking about code. So I maybe have, instead of procedural, I've got a code over here that says, this is the workflow. This thing can't be unit tested. It's only going to be integration tested. And that's my logic flow. But everything it calls can then be pure.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm starting with it. And so I'm doing a lot of that with C# because as much as I would love to rewrite my app in the safe stack, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, is that even a reality of
No, it's not, because if I go to F sharp, what's going to happen is the same thing that happened with a buddy of mine. He started out with some small things. He ended up writing this big thing in F sharp, left the company. Company was looking for somebody that could read F sharp and then bring him on to turn it back into C sharp.
So is it just, I mean, is that really the right decision? Like, I struggle with that one. Like, if it's the right tool for the right job,
right,
then shouldn't you be finding the right people, or shouldn't you be keeping your people happy?
I don't know. I won't say too much because I know both the guy that left and the guy that they brought in.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of like wasted effort to have invested in making something that works to turn around and like undo.
Long-term support? I don't know. Maybe not. Hard to say. That's why I'm an employee and not an employer.
Ooh, there you go. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
But I mean, even F sharp, that's in the .NET stack. Like, why is that such a stretch? I mean, we're not talking about going to Haskell or one of these other ones.
I don't know why. It took me a while to grasp it. I actually had to go to Elm before it started to make sense, and then came back to F sharp.
Why is that?
I think because Elm is web and web only. Like, there is no database component to it. You have to call an endpoint to do something. So it like just took that whole half of my brain and said, nope, you don't need to worry about it. Whereas if I'm in F sharp, I know I can go down to the database, and then I start worrying about, well, what's this going to look like? How do I do data access? And I got lost in the weeds.
Sure, yeah. So the familiarity that wasn't there, yeah, totally.
Right. So when I went to Elm, it just spits out JavaScript and eventually HTML. So it's like, okay. So things started to click then.
Yeah. I don't know that many people know about Elm. Can you give a short kind of what the hell is Elm?
Elm's a language that was created, and I guess it's loosely like TypeScript. So it's a language that transpiles into JavaScript.
Okay.
And then they use what they call the model view update thing, which is, it's a chicken and egg depending on who you talk to. Redux is very much the model view update.
Okay.
So it's one-way data flow. I'm going to do this, goes in, here's the state, what I want to do, function over here does it, gives you new state comes back, view updates, and re-renders on the screen. So Elm's just a different language that transpiles into JavaScript, and then the HTML libraries on there, when you go to, they did a very good job to keep it very similar, which helped in learning, I think. So to create an A tag, for example, it's a function. That function is called href. It's called A. So a div function is called div. And then it takes two arrays. It takes an array of an array of properties, kind of like CSS properties or anything like that, attributes. And the second one is any nested controls. And they all work the same way. They all take two parameter arrays, and so as you're writing it out, it looks enough like HTML that I didn't have to think about it. I could focus on what was happening.
Yeah, very React-y.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually really enjoy React. I think it's a pretty cool stack.
Yeah, we made the decision to go with Angular for one of our upcoming projects.
What was the criteria around that? That was a long sigh.
Yeah, level-headedness on my part, I think. In my opinion, this probably isn't true, but it's my opinion. Angular feels very enterprisey and very much like .NET, and we are a .NET shop. Therefore, I think it's going to be, and we can use TypeScript every time I tried React to TypeScript, I just threw it away. I couldn't do it. So I think it will be an easier transition for our team to pick it up, and that was my recommendation.
I want to get in such an argument with you right now.
That's fine.
I want to so bad. I hate TypeScript. I absolutely hate it. I'm
starting to play with Node now too on the Google stack, so I'm starting to see maybe JavaScript's not as bad as I thought it was.
I would encourage you to learn JavaScript for what JavaScript is, right? And it's hard to take yourself out of your past, the baggage that you've grown up with,
right?
Because obviously it was a dumpster fire back in the day, and for the younger ones who don't even know, it was horrible. But if you step back and you learn it for what it is, then you realize that you can do some really, really slick stuff, and that's true for any language. I mean, it's not like it's sliced bread compared to the next thing. But
what I find really odd is I can still do decent JavaScript as it relates to web projects and events and calling functions to do things. But when I'm on that server side and I'm writing Node,
it's a different world.
Different world.
So TypeScript though, what's your affinity to TypeScript?
It wasn't mine per se.
Yeah.
Again, it was for the betterment of the good. I think it's close enough that it looks like this. There's some other guys that are working on the team that really, really like it.
You said it. That's exactly my issue. It's close enough that it feels like this, and yet it's not.
Well,
that's my beef with it, right? We've been having this conversation about like going over the Elm and really learning functional because it felt different.
But now we're going to talk about TypeScript because it feels familiar.
Because it feels safe. And
but I don't know that was necessarily, that wasn't for me. If I had my choice.
No. Yeah,
I went React.
I'm not saying that there's not when TypeScript first came out, it was certainly something that filled a gap in the industry. But now you fast forward to now, and that gap has gotten really, really small.
Yeah.
The run times in the languages is moving fast enough along. There's a great ecosystem of things around JavaScript.
Or even as simple as IntelliSense in VS Code.
Yeah, I mean, like, what bugs me about the TypeScript stuff is things like, oh, there's an interface. Oh, no, that's not a thing that exists. Oh, an enum. No, that's not a thing that exists. And so you too many people try to take their OO experience and then make that JavaScript. And so you see classes where they should be functions. You see interfaces where there need to be anything. And you've gotten away from like the functional aspect of like composing JavaScript stuff to do a thing, and now you have this just weird goo.
Yeah, I was looking at one of the Google or Firebase functions I was working on through the example. I'm like, what does this do? I have no idea. So I went and looked it up. Okay, that makes sense. So then, out of curiosity, I said, what is this equivalent in TypeScript? And I couldn't find an answer. Yeah. They're like, well, if you use a Lambda one, then the copies are not on the prototype. They're on every one that you instantiate. If you do it this way, then you lose the ability to bind to this function. So now this doesn't mean this. And I'm like,
yeah. You mentioned Firebase. We were talking earlier. I'm really, really impressed with the Google stack. I don't know that they know what they have. Maybe they do, but it needs to get out of the proverbial beta. It's kind of a joy to deal with. I don't feel like I have to like change my architecture for them. It seems pretty pure to the languages and the frameworks that have been built, or they do a really good job behind the scenes, kind of doing
and you just
shit they do.
I'm normally a Microsoft guy. We're looking at and using Azure for work and everything else, but I got to go to this tab and I got to figure out this pricing and I need which size do I need, and I go over to Firebase. free, this much, this, I want free.
Yeah.
And then I want a new app. Okay, do this, run a command, and I've got a project. Let's go.
Yeah, the functions, I don't know, I think they're cloud functions on the app engine or Google Cloud side, and they're just functions in Firebase, although they're the same thing actually behind the scenes. I mean, even if you log into the other console, they're the same thing. But it is, it's not the answer to everything, but what's nice about theirs is it's just a legit like node function. Like
right.
You don't need some special gateway that goes through an APN that reroutes back to itself through your shoes and tied it back together. Like, you just deploy your damn function, like exactly what you would think that it should be.
Yeah,
and that's kind of nice.
There's some really cool things in Azure too, but
well, everyone has their kind of,
but just for
goods and bads, right? But being able to keep things pure is nice.
Simple.
Simple. Yeah. I mean, the Amazon lock-in is real. You're not going to write some node stuff and then think that you could just kind of uplift that and then take it somewhere else and run it. Not that you necessarily would. I mean, I think it's easy to say architecture land, let's just swap out database, like, whatever. Like, that doesn't happen, but
no. Well, that's what Docker's for now. You just Dockerize everything, and then you can move it around.
Hey, but that's a legitimate thing that one can do. And,
right.
And all too often, I'll hear something like, well, we don't really want to manage servers. Like, sort of. I don't feel like you understand what the container thing is, but okay, like you can have something else manage those containers, and you just write the container. But Docker's
you probably don't even have to write the container; it's probably written for you already.
Yeah, that too. I mean, that's certainly.
So .NET Core one, add my Angular app, and there it goes.
Yeah. I mean, the other day I just I've got a Synology in the basement, little NAS device for those who don't know what a Synology is, and it has Docker support, and I've got a little set of cron jobs that run for that conference, and I just threw it in a container. I was like, go give me this, go give me that. I published it. I went down to the Synology and was like, go give me this this container, and thing fired up, and it's like, done. Done. It was nothing. I mean, it's nothing to build these things. It's pretty cool. It's good stuff. Well, listen, sir, at the end of all of these, I like to acknowledge and send a bit of gratitude in your direction. And with you, we've known each other for a long time, and I'm not going to do that. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
no,
I expect nothing less.
We've known each other for a long time, and I want to just acknowledge you for the presence that you bring. I think your attitude is always a good one. You're a happy person to be around. I think that's infectious. I think that others just that little thing alone then spreads around to everybody who's around you, and thus I know you're in a community and you speak all the time, and that just makes that thing bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's very cool. So keep the smile on and keep staying involved, because it's something special.
All right, thank you for all you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's Friday.
It's Friday.
Stand in the rain in a soccer game. All right.
I'll go pop the top on an adult beverage here in a minute.
Yeah, I kind of have to parlay that one for a little while. Last question, one that I ask everybody. How would you define community, and what does it mean to you?
Defining it, trying to define it is a little bit harder. What it means to me, and maybe that's where my definition comes from, that I like the ability to be able to reach out and talk to people and learn new things, and there's no fear. There's no, I can go to, I've met a bunch of Rubyists around here. I don't know a damn thing about Ruby. Didn't matter. There was no fear of interacting with them. I like that idea of, we've got the Slack channels and I've got meetups here and local conferences. There's just no fear of making anyone upset. There's no dumb questions. We just get together and hang out and have a good time or talk tech or talk not tech. So that's important to me with the community.
I love it.
Cool.
Appreciate you sharing.
Thank you.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for watching this Friday afternoon. I'm curious if you've had a foray into functional programming. What kind of tips or tricks work for you? Leave a comment below. Give us a thumbs up. Share with your friends. Al, where can people find you?
Twitter's the best. And I'm assuming you'll put that on there. Al Zaudtke, the thing you can spell but can't say. So
I could say Zaudtke. Zaudtke. Zaudtke.
There you go.
Is it German?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
German. Zaudtke. See, if you just said that, I'd been, Clark, go to your German roots, man.
Oh, there you go. No, Twitter's probably the best. I've got a GitHub repo out there. Last name without the Al, so
we'll put it in the notes.
Cool.
And with that being said, happy weekend, happy Friday.
And I'll see you in August.
You know it. We'll talk next time.